welcome to Trenton 3D, brought to you by Isles Inc. I'm your host, Marcus Maximus Mera. This was an idea I had originally proposed to do classes in Trenton, New Jersey, in order to bring this 3D knowledge and education to an area where people may not have access to computers or the education or the knowledge of how to do this kind of modeling, which is a very useful modeling skill to have. It allows you to do things not only for jewelry, but you can also do for film, for animation, product design, and other categories, as well as is now used in scientific practice for medical fields and all different kinds of fields of engineering, including building 3D printed houses. So I'm going to talk about Rhino, which is the software that I use since 2004, 2003. I actually have my original copy of Rhino 4 over here, and I have the plugin Tech Gems, which is dated 2004. It's a software that, in all honesty, you don't need the newest version to be successful modeler. So I use Rhino 5. They're already launching Rhino 7, and a lot of people use Rhino 6. I find Rhino 5 is got all the tools I need to make whatever design I want as a jeweler. And you can run on computers that are older. You don't have to have the newest computer in order to run Rhino 5. You can actually buy something 5 years old and save yourself a ton of money and have a fully functioning 3D package. Zbrush is another application I use tremendously, and it's a software package that allows for organic modeling. And what you're going to learn over the course of 8 weeks here is not only Rhino, but how to export your files out of Rhino into Zbrush and be able to turn it into organic forms and go back and forth between the two software packages. Now, as jewelers, we're going to want things pavéed and ready for manufacturing. As artists, you still want to be able to add and use Rhino after coming with the model back in from Zbrush. So there's techniques and things that we're gonna do that are pretty advanced and not too many people know how to do it. So let me start off by sharing my screen, and I want to kind of go over some of the things that make Rhino great, as well as like just kind of a little history of me and like some websites to look over. So for instance, this jewelry piece here was modeled in Rhino and 3D printed and casted. And then it's basically the ceiling of a religious cathedral in Italy. Here's a design that I'm incorporating a 3D printed part with hand engraving, as well as this top piece was handmade and assembled. So basically I'm using 3D to make components like Lego blocks, and then using traditional hand techniques to assemble. So here, this is a multiple piece 3D model that was pavéed before assembled. So you get to do things like that, as well as make organic designs. And then this engraving was done by hand. You could have done that in the CAD, but like when you go with the hand, it gets a little, deeper and a little more defined. Certain things you can't do, which would be like this kind of engraving on a signet ring, is not conducive of a 3D printed ring. It basically is, you would really want to have that hand engraved to get the crispness and the shininess of the design. So that would not be, you can make the model, it'll look great on the computer, but once you 3D print it and cast it, it's just not the same. It's just not what you're looking for. So those are the kind of things that we're going to discuss as well over the course of some strategies in jewelry manufacturing and production. Adding metal for polishing. Here's another view of that ring. So here you see inside was nice and polished and shiny. The reason being is because it was separated and polished and then assembled. If you were to 3D print this in one piece and then cast it and try to clean it, you wouldn't have the same results. It'd be very difficult to get inside there and polish it really nicely. So you kind of want to use handmade techniques when using 3D 3D technology in order to produce jewelry pieces. You really want to think about how you would do it by hand, make the components as Lego blocks, and then assemble them by hand. Here's a little view of my corner of my shop where I pulled the wire, and that really illustrates that to be a really great jeweler, I think you need to combine handmade techniques with the 3D. If you just concentrate on 3D only, people are gonna know it's a 3D printed piece. You could just tell on the way it comes out. It'd be very hard to hide it. So let me see if there's anything else I could show off. So this one again was another one that was assembled, 3D printed, and then assembled. And this kind of setting right here that you see here, you see the sharp cuts here. Let me actually magnify that for you. Let's see, I can do this and then that. All right, yeah, there. So those fishtail cuts, you could do it in the CAD, but if you see how shiny it is, that's because that's using a hand engraver to do that. Like that's hand engraved to get that look. You're not going to get that from just 3D printing the piece. So again, this has a high-end finish due to the fact that it was hand engraved in order to put those diamonds in. And that's a very important part of my teachings is how to create those high-end looks and using the 3D technology. Now here we scanned a 3D scanning of a gentleman's teeth in order to create grills. And what's really cool is using the 3D scanner, I was able to get the exact model of his teeth inside Rhino, and then I was able to build the model for it in order to make the grill. So it fits right on his teeth nicely without any issues, except maybe some dental bills later on down the line. You can get very sculptural. Here I was making a Kali using Rhino and Zbrush. So this is really like a combination of the two software packages. Here's a gentleman wearing it for weigh-ins, Gordon Ryan. So here you go. This is a 3D scanned cicada that was found in the wild. And then I made the wings with Rhino and was able to 3D print and create a design that's really organic. I mean, like, look at the details that came from that scan. And obviously I couldn't get the wing scan, so I think it still looks really great. All right, so enough about me. If you want to follow me on Instagram at Dr. Guillotine, I highly recommend going to my YouTube channel and Dr. Guillotine over here in YouTube. I have a playlist for the classes. So this is the, oops, one second. Anyway, so I have the previous classes here, and that's very helpful to go back and relive the class, or you'll see what the technique is, because it's very specific, especially Rhino, what you got to do. And it's going to be very hard to just like take notes or follow along. You're going to want to go back and reference it to really pick up the skills that are needed to progress with this. I highly recommend going on the Rhino website, and if you go under downloads, there is the manual. Now, I'm not sure what version of Rhino you use, if it's the Mac or the Windows version. I highly recommend you use the Windows version. If you have a Mac, you could still use the Windows version by running Windows as Boot Camp or virtually, but I recommend Boot Camp and running Windows version of Rhino. It has all the features that because it's the original. The Mac version was built later on and is missing features that are very important. And also the interface, I think, is just not as good. I didn't really like it. Unless they updated it and made it more similar. I just strongly recommend you use the Windows version. Also, there's more plugins for the Windows version for sure, and that's a main part. So if you go under resources, there's just a tremendous amount of apps and plugins and scripts and materials that you can just grab off this website. So you got to like really live and breathe the website, the Rhino website. I think it's really a fantastic website to utilize. And same thing with Zbrush. Zbrush has a whole learning section. I mean, even on their Instagram, they send crazy looking clips and tutorials and just amazing stuff that's way better than I am. Like, I like to think I'm good, but man, there are people that are just way next level on this. And you'll see them here on this website, what they're capable of. They'll make things that are just absolutely super lifelike, and not just make jewelry, they'll make the person wearing the jewelry with all his clothing and everything on it. So I highly recommend studying the Pixelogic website and going through it. Another website I really recommend looking at, in fact, is 3D Systems. Um, Jewelry printers are fantastic. This is state of the art 3D printing. You've heard of SolidScape, you've heard of Envision Tech, Asiga. There's plenty that are specifically for jewelry. 3D Systems to me is the world-class, state-of-the-art 3D printing printers. Um, so you have this Fab Pro 1000, which is an entry-level one, which is perfect for somebody with a small shop. It's like $5,000, and you're off to 3D printing castable parts. And this is the workhorse here that everybody in the casting industry uses right here, the ProJet. But now we're talking $50,000, and you need a lot of space, and maintenance ain't cheap. So I do recommend a Fab Pro if you decide that you want to buy yourself a 3D printer. I highly recommend it. All right. Yay, Rhino. So again, I'm going to talk to you guys as though you're complete beginners, and maybe it will help that I go over the fundamentals for you, Thomas. So here we go. Command line. This is one of the most important aspects of Rhino. This is basically how you communicate with Rhino and Rhino communicates with you. So there's a few ways to enter commands. You can basically type in a command. So you can just start typing and it'll bring up, what you want to do, and get a curve and start making the curve. Or you can go under the menu and you left click and hold, and you can left click again onto the palette, and then you can move the palette around, which is helpful if you have the same tool that you're using over and over again. Right here, this one is my favorite tool, Interpolate Points. So make a note of this one. I'm going to actually zoom into it so you can see it. Right, and oh wait, what happened? I guess it doesn't right there. And there, sorry, kind of new to this. All right, so there it is, Interpolate Points. It's the one where the points are right on the line right there. So that one is what we're going to want to use 90% of the time. And you just left click to start it. And every time you left click, you're going to be adding a point. And it has kind of a weird way of bending, as you can see here. And that is similar to Illustrator. If you ever use Illustrator, an Adobe product, it basically has that same kind of Illustrator feel to it. Now, the next thing is when we want to finish this command, we don't want to end up with the curve off. We want it to snap. You see how it snaps? Let me see if bringing up the magnifying lens. Okay, here. So here it's snapping. It says snapping to the point. I left click, and now that is basically a closed curve. Okay. So what we don't want to have is this. We don't want to end up with something like that. All right. That might be okay if you're just doing a visual design, but when we're building things for engineering and manufacturing, we want to have things seamless and closed 99% of the time. So down here, let me use my magnifying lens. Here's my cursor. Down to the bottom, we have the where you can enable and disable the way that Rhino snaps to an object. So end is basically you're snapping to the end of a point. You know, you can also snap to a particular point. You can land anywhere near a curve. And we'll go over these as we go along. But just keep this in mind down here, that this is how you change the way Rhino snaps to an object. Okay? Keep that in mind. Next, I'm going to talk about a couple of things that Rhino has. Rhino has curves. So you can see here the drop-down menu. And by the way, that's another way. That's a third way of interfacing with Rhino is the drop-down menus. So you have the curve command over here, and under lines, polylines here, you can choose or just, you know, whatever command you want to use. It's also here in the drop-down menu. I prefer using the icons, and what I really prefer is my middle mouse button shortcuts. So basically, I have a pop-up menu where I have all my favorite commands are here. And you just load them up with the ones that you want. And we'll go over how to create a pop-up menu and save it later on in this course. But that is definitely my favorite. Well, actually, that's wrong. My favorite way is shortcuts, where I actually use the keyboard to do shortcuts. You know, so like control. So if I choose this curve here, all right, we have several different ways that we can do it. My favorite being the shortcut is the one I created called Control E, and that extrudes the curve. So you see that's now extruded the curve. It's doing it in both directions here. So it's very important that once you're activating a command that you know that you have options here. So up here are the options. I'm going to zoom into the options so you can see what I'm talking about. So right here are the options. You have the distance that you can input, the direction that it goes. Do you want it to go both sides? I'm going to say no, and then you're going to see how it changes the way that the extrusion is happening. It's not happening in both directions anymore. It's happening one direction. So now I can type in 10, and that would be 10 millimeters because I have my Rhino set to millimeters. And there you go. You have a solid. So again, we're going to say extrude this curve here. And I'm unable to cap it because it doesn't have a closed structure here. And since it's open, we just have surfaces here. So that's now the basics of Rhino is you have your, let me move this guy out of the way. You have your curve, which makes your surface. And if it's done correctly, you can cap it and make a solid. And if you look under the menu over here, I'm going to zoom right in. You have curve, surface, solid. Mesh, we'll talk about mesh later, but right now, just worry about curve, surfaces, and solids. Okay, that is the basics of how Rhino works. I'm going to pause the video and see if you have any questions before I continue. All right. Boom. Boom. All right. So Mayfield, any questions so far?
Would you like us to be taking notes right now, or do you feel like you're walking us around the program right now, just introducing us to it?
I again, you could take notes. I do recommend taking notes, but I am recording this.
Okay.
So this will be, you'll be able to go back and reference it.
Okay.
And, you know, I'm going to give you specific instructions. Like I'm going to email you a JPEG. Actually, it's a PNG file. If you have Rhino, Thomas, is that you making noise? Yeah, it was him making noise. I can send you the file. Do you have Rhino open in front of you right now?
I do not.
Oh, okay. So yeah, so don't worry. Just take some notes if you want, or just watch the video later. I'm going to give it step-by-step instructions. So, I'll send you the file later, and then when you're in front of your computer, you can watch the video again and then do the follow the course along the video, and you can ask me questions later on too as well. You can send me an email.
Okay.
All right. So I will now continue a little bit more. All right, let's go. I'm still trying to figure out how to use this software. Sorry. Okay, mute. There we go. All right, so this is what you were asking me, Phil. We're going to now do what is the basics of making like your first jewelry piece in Rhino. So I'm going to delete this, and my way of deleting is I made a shortcut key called Control X. So if you want to write that down, Control X is delete. So let's go to the top view here. And on the side, on the command, I'm going to use, let me just zoom in here. We're going to go under this menu here. No, not that one, sorry. We're going to go under here. So left click and hold, and then you want picture frame, this one right here, this multicolored one. You left click on that, and I'm going to choose the file. Now let me turn off this magnifying glass. Okay, left click, drag. I use the shift button. So I'm left clicking, drag, and I'm shifting it to lock it in one direction. And left click again, and I'll let go. And now we have a reference photo inside Rhino. And you can move it around. So in order to not move it around, in the command line, type in the word lock, and you're going to lock it in place. And now I can't drag it anymore. Okay. And when you go to the layers menu here, okay, we have a layer that is just one single layer. If the layers menu is not on your screen over here, you can come underneath over here and left click to bring up the layers menu, but it's already here. So now we're going to create a new layer and give it a different color, something bright so it stands out so you can see it. So like a magenta will definitely stand out, or cyan, that stands out pretty well, is pretty good too. Another one, aquamarine, that's a good one. Let's try that. Hit OK. And if remember that command, Interpolate Curves, that's on the left side here. Left click and hold it and go to it. It's the second one in, and you let go. All right, let me do it without the magnifying lens. You left click and hold, move over to the second option, and as you can see, it says Interpolate Points. It's the one where the dots are right on the line. Click on that. Now make sure you're in the correct layer. We want to be in the one with the cyan color or aquamarine color. I zoom in with the middle mouse button. I zoom in right here. And then I'm going to left click. Oh, why isn't it showing up? Hold on. Normally the color would change. Why didn't it change? Oh, I'm in the wrong layer. Okay, so see this checkbox over here? I was in the default layer. We want to be in the new layer that we created. So you double left click to change layers. So we want to be in this layer. Sorry about that. Okay, come back here, left click, and now you can see it. You see the curve. And we're just going to follow along the object that we're going to make here, the drawing that we have here. When I come to the end here, if I try to if I try to go down, it's curving too much because it's like that Illustrator way of using curves. I'm just going to right click to end the command. And you can see the curve is still there. Now, one of the coolest tricks is and shortcut in using this software is right click restarts the command that you were previously using. So instead of going back up here and clicking on it or typing the command, you just right click it again and it activates the same command. Okay, very important thing to know. Now remember, we said that we have to have end selected or point selected in order to snap to the curve. So we want to snap to this curve. I'm going to zoom in here and we're snapping to the curve. Left click. And now I'm able to continue. And you see it's not bending like it was previously. It's straight now. And that allows to get a little bit more accurate model here. And just now I'm going to follow all the way around. Again, I just right click to start the command, right click to end the command. So I right click to end the command. Now I'm going to right click to restart, snap by left clicking and dragging away and continuing all the way around. I do this mainly at those parts that it's very sharp, sharp corners like right here. So here I can just stretch it all the way out, get to that corner, looks good to me, left click again, snap, and you're on your way. Okay, and this is the drawing I'm going to send to you for practicing, so that way you can follow along the video. And make sure that you are snapping and not left clicking here and starting, because it's not together. And that's the number one mistake you're going to make, is if I zoom in here, and I'm sure you see it, it's not connected. So this is the major problem that most beginners have, is not having them joined, connected correctly. All right, so you'd have to delete this. Oops, Control X to delete. All right, right click to restart the command, left click to snap. So you can see we're snapped in, and keep on drawing. All right, now I'm going to speed it up a little bit just to get this first model going. Now here we have a perfect circle. So here I can go grab this circle tool, and I like the one that's circle with 3 points. Okay, circle with 3 points. I'm going to left click on it, and this allows me to, snap to that point, then find the outer edge of the circle there, one, and then the third one. You see it's already like a perfect circle. Love that. That's one of my favorite commands. So again, I can go here to restart the Interpolate Curves command, or I hit my middle mouse button. If I have it there, I don't have to move my mouse all the way over. So there's a bad habit of having to always constantly come over here. I could be working here in the model, hit the middle mouse button, click on Interpolate Curves, and go to town. Now I'm going to purposely not snap to this circle, and I'm going to show you how to trim curves, because that's an important part of this modeling technique as well. So I'm actually going to start a little bit of ways from here and left click, and then continue with the tracing. Right click to start the command again, and continue all the way around. Right click here. All right. Sorry, I'm trying to fill some dead air with. So how you guys doing today? Everything all right? Yeah, it's COVID-19 thing, kind of weird, huh? Woo. All right, anyway, last one, snap, done. All right, boom. Next, we're gonna trim away this line and this part of the circle here. We're gonna trim it away. So the way I do it is I usually select all of them at one time by left clicking, dragging a box from right to left over it and letting go. And whatever is in that box that you go from left to right, whatever's touching that box will be selected. Now, if I go from left to right and select it, unless I cover the whole thing, it won't select it. So it will only select whatever I have completely in the box. Whereas left, from right to left, it's whatever touching the box gets selected. Okay, that's important to know. Great skill to have. All right, so we have a curve here. I know it's a little hard to see, but we have a curve here that's perfectly touching. And we have a curve here that is crossing over. Now, I'm going to show you the command here, trim. You're going to left click on trim. And now if you look at the command line, it says select objects to trim, press enter to clear selection, start over. So what we're going to do is we're just going to left click on the parts that we don't need. All right. You see how it just disappeared? And it's perfectly finished right over here. So now we got exactly what we want. So we're going to right click to end the command. And if you go in here, you're going to see it's perfectly matched. You see that, guys? Right there. That was from the trim. All right, we're not done yet because each object, each curve is still separated. It's a separate segment. So now we're going to go and go from right to left and select all the curves at one time. And we're going to hit this puzzle icon over here, right there, the puzzle one. Looks like two pieces of a puzzle coming together. That's the join command. Left click on that. Now I'm going to unmagnify, 1 second. All right, so now it's joined. So let me take you on to the different viewport. Now you have a couple of ways that you can go back. You can double click on that name on this top corner over here. So like if you want to go in perspective, you double click to go into perspective, or double click to go to the top view. I'm going to go to the perspective view so you get a great idea of what's happening here. We made a curve that's totally flat onto the plane, and we're now going to extrude it. So you can go under the menu here, surface, extrude curve, straight. Okay. And we are extruding this curve straight. So let's do it 2 millimeters. All right. Now we want to cap it. So we can go into the command line and type in CAP, cap, and we've made a solid. So now if you were to 3D print this and cast it, this is exactly what you would get. All right, so I'm going to now take a moment to see if you guys have any questions of what I did. All right, Mayfield, any questions?
All good.
All right, cool. Yeah, so you know this so far, right?
Yes. Well, you're refreshing me.
Oh, great, yeah. So again, a couple of things is the interpolate curves is the important one to use, not the control point curve, the second one. Whenever you click on a command, you can see that the name of it shows up right over here. Let me zoom in so you can see it. All right, so up here in the command line, right there, you see where it says command, it's the history. So I don't know if this magnifying thing works for me. So here's the command. Let me get out of it now. Oops, let me get out of it. Okay, so this is the history. When you go up, you see the name is right here, the command. And here's the name. Okay, so you can actually type in the name instead of, if you can't find it, so say you can't find the icon, because sometimes these icons get jumbled. And for instance, you can't find the icon, you can just type it in here. So you just start typing enter, and then see it shows up. And then you left click it and you just started the command. Now, why is that important? Well, I do find myself typing the command sometimes. Sometimes I find it faster than looking for the icon, or, I have pop-up menus. I try to keep them simplified. I don't want to have a pop-up menu with every single command on it. I kind of try to stay focused on what I have in the pop-up menu. I like to use shortcut with the keyboard a lot. I always keep my left hand on the keyboard at all times. It's not down on my lap. It's not, fiddling around. It's always on the keyboard. My right hand is always on the mouse. So that way, when I'm modeling, I'm actively using shortcuts, and it speeds up modeling process, makes it more fun. Like when you start using the shortcuts, it becomes fun. And the speed, just your skill set goes up. Now, another reason why you want to have the ability to type in the command is when I make my shortcuts, which is I hit document properties, is I make it as F12. So when I hit F12, my document properties come up. And under keyboard, you have the shortcuts that you can add. So right here, Extrude Curve is Control E. So the way I like to do it is if I want to change it, I'll come in here and I'll say, you know, either I'll go down to the drop down menu and choose it right here. Here's the command. Now I can highlight and copy it, Control C to copy it, go into my keyboard menu, go down to Control E and paste it in. So that way you never misspelling it, because it's always these weird names. You know, it's like, all right, it's just the easiest way of creating your shortcuts, which I'll go over every single one. I'll even send you like a printout of the shortcuts so that you have that. And that I really hope you take away from this today, since you do have some Rhino skills, is left hand on the keyboard, right hand on the mouse, using your shortcuts, and also using the command line. Make sense? For you?
Yeah, okay. So let's say you were casting that, so it would come
Yeah.
out as like a flat sheet.
Yes.
Could you show us how to pierce it? Is that something? Like how you would cut?
The metal?
Yeah.
Okay, sure. So I would do a lot of the piercing before 3D printing
Mhm,
and in the Rhino. So let's just, for instance, let's go back to the top view here
mhm,
and say like we want these cutouts here that you
mhm.
have here. All right. So I'm going to go back to the top view, and we're going to just do the same thing that we just did before. Um, let me just lock the, okay. So let's start off with the circle. We're going to do the circle with the 3 points. That's my favorite. Start over here. 1, 2, 3. Okay. And this time we want to extrude it. So we're going to do Control E. That's my shortcut. Or surface, extrude curve, straight. And we're going to do both sides. Okay. Both sides. And I'm going to want it as a solid. So you see over here where I'm changing solid from no to yes. And I want to make sure I go past the sword itself. Now, when we look from perspective, you see you have two objects. You have the sword that I locked, and we have the cutting object. Now let's make a new layer, because that's a good habit to do. Let's right click to change the object into the layer. So you change object layer. And let's change the color to something like orange so we can see the difference. Okay. And let me unlock now the sword. So the sword is unlocked, and here's the new command that you're gonna learn today for creating cutouts. You're going to left click onto the sword, because this is the object we wanna keep, and the orange object is the cutter. And we're gonna go over to this Boolean, left click and hold, difference. Okay, Boolean difference. You can see it in the command line, Boolean difference right over here. And now it's asking for the cutting object. So the object that we're going to subtract with. Left click on that. Now you could have multiple objects and then right click. Boom, there you go. That's one cutout. So now I'm going to show you if you had multiple cutouts. So we're going to make 2 more cutouts. So let's go to the top view again. Basically everything is the same here. This time I'm going to make a new curve. 3 points once again. 1, 2, 3. So that we have that curve right there, nice and perfect. Interpolate curve, I like to go past it here because we're just going to trim. Get to that point, right click to start the command, left click to snap, left click to end it, right click to restart, snap, and go past with a left click. Now select the other objects, the other curves, by holding shift, left click. So I'm hitting the shift and left clicking to select multiple curves. I'll do that again. I'm hitting shift, left click for 1, 2, and 3. Then I let go of the shift. And now back to the trim command, hit the trim. And this is the part we want to keep. So we're going to get rid of that curve, this one right here, and this one right here. And right click to end the command. And now in order to join it, we still need this line down here. So I'm going to hold shift, left click. Now we have these 4 curves selected and join. Same thing down here. So let's go. I'm going to use polylines to go this part fast. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right click to end the command. Switch to Interpolate Curve. Click. Right click to start the command again, and left click to end. All right, let's join. Oops. Control Z. Let's join these curves. Shift left click to select each one. And join. Okay, now let's go to the side view here. And under perspective, if you right click, one of the most useful ones that I use is ghosted. So I can see underneath what's going on. And I just find it as a very useful, or you could use wireframe. That's also a good one too. So here I can just choose these 2 curves right here, 1 and 2. And we're going to now extrude just like before, Control E. Oops, why I say join. Choose the curve 1, 2, Control E to extrude. There we go. All right. And as we did before, we're going to switch this to the different layer, the orange layer, by selecting it now. Right to left, I'm putting a box around it, just the ones that I want. Right click over the layer, change object layer. That's why it turns orange. It's now in the orange layer. Now the Boolean difference, how does that work again? It works like this. We're going to, let me just lock that. We're going to left click on the sword, go to Boolean difference. You can also go from the drop down menu under solid, and then under Boolean difference is down here. Click on it, choose the 2 cutting objects, 1 and 2, with a left click, and then right click. And there you go, we just cut it out. All right, so might as well finish it off with the last section. All right, let me just finish that off. So I'm using the straight polyline here because there's no curves. 1, 2, left click, back over here, 3, 4. You see the polyline goes straight instead of curving. And I could do it in one shot. So this is where you know, a little experience on what to use is very helpful in order to model quickly. All right, and now my shortcut is Control D for Boolean difference. And there we go. All right. Let's see. Any questions?
No, that was great.
Yeah, is that what you wanted?
Yeah, perfect.
All right. Now let me tell you a little bit about how I would prepare this for 3D printing. Number one is if this is now modeled at 100%, meaning this is exactly how I want it finished in real life, then you have to add metal for shrinkage and polishing. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So one of the easiest ways to cheat would be offsetting all surfaces into a solid. Now, it doesn't always work. So if I choose the object and I type in offset surface, and right here it says solid yes, the distance that we want, minimum 0.1. Sounds about right. Right click, and there you go. You can see that it offset by 0.1. Now, this gives you enough metal to polish and clean up. You're also going to want to add a sprue. So you kind of want to build like a sprue system to give to the caster. Never let them build the sprues, because number one, if they're 3D printing and they have to handle it, they can break the piece. If you make a sprue for them, then they have hold on, I was gonna say they have where they can hold the part. Do you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Okay, so yeah, you kind of want to build that for them, especially if that looks like a fragile piece. So like if I was going to 3D print that and have it casted, build a sprue system for them to hold it, and then allows the ability to cast it, make the caster handle it better, and then they could also add more sprues if they wanted to.
Marcus,
right.
did you add 0.10 to both sides?
Yeah, I added 0.10 all over. So the whole thing has 0.10, 0.10 on the top, on the inside. And then you know, me, I would polish even on the inside. So a lot of jewelers, am I sharing the screen right now? No, hold on. So a lot of the polishers would just be lazy and polish the top, the bottom, and maybe the outside if you're lucky.
Don't give it to them. Do it yourself.
Do it yourself. So the way I would do this polishing wise is using emery paper, 320 on the outside, and the whole thing, just polish it nicely. And then the inside, I would use a very fine file. So I went just to the other day to Zach's asking, you guys know what an escapement file is?
I got him.
Okay, so hold on, let me show you.
They help you escape
hold on.
Tight places.
One moment, please. I can actually stand up, so just give me a second here. Hold on.
They're beautiful little, tiny little files.
Hello.
Hello.
Hello. So, voila, escapement files. This is a number 10.
6.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Number 10.
Really?
You cannot find these. This is what Harry Winston uses, okay? Because this polishes. This doesn't just clean. So like, I have here.
They're Grobet, right?
Whatever this one is.
Valorb.
So I even have an 8. This is an 8, and then I have another 10 that's a little bigger. So I generally use 4, 8, and then 10 for, if I can't use emery paper. Emery paper is better. Don't get me wrong. Emery paper is better, but there's some parts that you can't stick the emery paper in.
It's not stiff enough. It's not
stiff enough to get into those certain parts. And this, you just go in, and with a microscope, you can literally see the metal smooth away and polish and get shiny. So it's really awesome if you want to do high-end pieces. I highly recommend that. Do you want to talk about maybe shortcuts?
Yeah, we all need shortcuts.
Yeah, okay.
Really? Shortcuts are good.
So Thomas, do you have yours set up with shortcuts? Do you use the shortcut keys?
Yeah, I love the hotkeys.
The hotkeys. Tell Mayfield, you got to learn about the hotkeys.
Mayfield,
yes.
When I got this computer and I'm doing Rhino and I had my left hand in my chin, and I go, you know, and then I have to go look for a tool, and you open a tool, you open one of the tools, and 10 more tools are in there. So you waste a lot of time looking for a tool. It's just like, oh my gosh, where's that tool? So when you do the hotkeys and you figure out what your favorite hotkeys are. Yeah, I like to say this is the best crack cocaine I've ever done, but I've never done crack cocaine, so I don't know. But I have to take breaks. 'cause I start
Women
going
and
fast.
children are present, Thomas. Chill out.
So
All right.
no,
All right. All right.
the thing is, I have to. I love it so much. It's like, whoa, I got to get up and get away from it because I start going too fast. You know, it's just. But
So this
you can get stuff done really quick.
not just quick, it's more fun. Like it's almost like, you know,
Well,
playing a video game.
Yeah,
Um,
it is fun. Yeah, I'll admit it's fun. Maybe
all right.
that's
So
why I
let
listen.
me show, because I noticed my my Boolean difference hotkey wasn't working. So the first hotkey I create is always document properties. So right there is document properties. I copy it with a Control C, you know, and you go down to File, and you go down to Properties, and it comes up, and then you make sure you click on Keyboard here. See that, Mayfield?
Mhm.
And then for me, I like using F12 here, and then I'll paste in
Mhm.
exactly how it's spelled: document properties with an S, with an underscore in the front. Okay.
Mhm.
Put that under F12 and hit OK. And then every time I hit F12, now I'm just typing F12, it pops up. Okay.
Okay.
So that's very helpful. So now Boolean difference, I'm just going to launch the command. There's the word Boolean difference. I'm going to just copy it all the way, including the underscore,
Mhm.
Control C, or Apple C if you're on the Mac, F12, and go down to Control D, because Control D just feels natural for me, and see, it wasn't there. Control D
Mhm.
and paste it, and there it is, Boolean difference. Hit OK. So now if I want to do it, I just hit Control D, and it's asking me to what object do I want to subtract with. So it's that fast. Instead of
Mhm.
going, clicking,
Right.
it's just so much faster. The main ones I use are Control E for extrude, Control D for Boolean difference, Control R for sweep one rail, and Control Shift R for sweep two, and then Control X for delete. Those are the main ones I use. And again, pop-up menu in the middle for like join. Oh, I'm going to show this command right here, the zoom selected. It is a really cool one. So I'm actually going to mute you guys and show you this command. All right. So let me unlock and delete, and we have their sword. Okay. So let's make a couple of more objects here. And what happens is you'll find yourself having a hard time like rotating around. See, like I can't rotate around this block. I want to make it easy, but I can't. It's very hard to zoom to, you know, you get kind of locked into a certain spot. So in order to focus on this particular one, I'm going to use this command here, which is zoom selected. You can find it up here is with the natural location under the standard tab. But I have this as a pop-up shortcut, so I can just quickly get to this object. And you see now it's right in the center of the screen, and I'm rotating around it. So again, I can switch to that. Say I want to switch to that one now. It's like, you see, it's not rotating from the center of the object. So I can go up to the top over here and hit zoom selected, and now I'm rotating around it. Or you got to use the pop-up menu. Zoom select is just so much faster. You know, zoom select is one of the killer commands that just help me with modeling, because, you know, you kind of get in and you can't really, oh, you get lost. Where am I? Oh, lost. Oh, there I am. Okay. Zoom selected saves the day. You should use it a lot. Thomas, it was one of the most like, oh, like moments in my
Mhm.
3D modeling career when this command was shown to me. Before I would struggle. I'm like, oh my, you know, I would zoom in and I'm like, I can't quite get to the spot. How do I get it? Now I get there. Okay, boom. I get exactly where I want to go. zoom select, it saves the day. And again, yeah, it puts gumball right in the center of the object. But anytime you left click on an object, the gumball is there. So you just have to left click on the object to have the gumball in the center. Unless you have something like, if down on the bottom here, you see down on the bottom is gumball, you have to make sure you have it turned on.
Mm,
You see that?
okay.
And if your snaps are gone, you see down here, this is the snaps. That means, your on snaps need to be turned on right here. That's on snaps, turns it on or off. Or you can select which one you want to turn on and off individually. You can left click to turn them on and off. Or if you right click, it'll turn everything off except for the one that you want. So like middle, I right click, it just select the middle, or end, I right click and it just selects end. Or you can again, left click to add or left click to deselect. And to turn on and off, it's on snaps right here. And again, same thing with gumball. You turn it on and off. Okay. So, really wanted to show ZBrush. So pissed. All right,
It's
because
not working. It's not working.
I have to reinstall it. Looks like, and I tested everything except for ZBrush on this. I have like 3 computers, and this is the one I was doing the Zoom meeting on, and I didn't test out the ZBrush on it. What else can I show? Well, here, why not I show this command? All right, so you have primitives. Let's make a spherical primitive. And say I want to draw a pattern to cut out from it. There's this command right here, Interpolate Curves on surface. Left click onto the command, choose the object, and now you left click to start drawing on it. All right, but let's change the color so it's a little easier to see what's going on. So we change the object layer. And now, as I draw on it, you can see better. Am I right?
Mhm.
Yes.
Okay, so let's just make like a pattern. And this is on the surface. You see it? It's on the surface of the sphere. So we can make, I don't know, like a flower thing here. Right click. All right. So let's make like a lowered section, or how about a raised section? So I'm going to right click on this sphere, and I'm going to hit the new command, split command. And then I'm going to left click on the curve to choose the cutter. The curve is the cutter, and right click to activate it. So now we have a surface that is separated from the sphere. See that?
Mhm.
Now, in order to raise the surface, I would select that surface, and then the shortcut would be surface, offset surface, and let's do a distance of 0.2 millimeters, and make sure you have solid chosen and right click. Boom. So now that's raised off of the sphere. See that?
Mhm.
And it's kind of how I did Lisa Jenks. I don't know if you know Lisa Jenks, pretty cool silver jewelry artist. And she would have a lot of like these kind of tribal patterns on her spheres that were, oops. So here I kind of overdid it. So let's go Control Z to go back. Make sure see, I'm wrapping around. I don't want to do that. So let's Control Z. Oh no, disaster.
I have a techie question.
Boom.
If
There it
you
is.
if you had this object cast and then you wanted to clean that little 0.2 millimeter edge,
Yeah.
how would you do that? Oh, would you get like a little buffing
Yeah,
tool,
just
like a little buffing wheel?
you wouldn't bother with
Like
that
that?
edge. You wouldn't bother
Just
with that
leave it.
edge.
Okay.
You just leave it. If you really want to polish it, if it needs to be polished, you would probably cast it as a separate piece,
Yeah.
polish it, pre-polish it, and then solder it on with a laser or something like that.
Mhm.
Or probably hot solder. No, probably just regular solder. You make it like it would fit in.
Mhm.
But for me, I don't think that's what you really would want. I think you would rather have. Now you see, look where I split here, you see that the surface where this is the seam that the Rhino made in order to make the sphere. So in order to do that command that I did before, you would have to join these together first. So I would hold left click, hold shift, left click the other one and hit the puzzle piece. And now it's joined. So now when I offset it, surface, offset surface, again, solid, and let's make a greater distance, 0.5. So probably 0.5 would be better for this particular design. If you want, for this size. But this is a huge sphere I made. It's kind of big. And so that's offsetting and using the draw on surface command. Very useful. I definitely use that command. One thing I'm not going to show you in this class is every single command.
That's for sure.
I'm just not. Okay.
There's 1,000 commands.
There's like a ton of commands. And honestly, in order to make whatever you want, you really don't need all the commands. You know, you really don't. So I'm just going to go over the basic commands that I use on a daily basis to make very complex models. All right. So I think, unfortunately, I'm going to cut it 15 minutes short just because Zbrush is not here and I planned for Zbrush.
Hey, what about some T-splines too? Can you get some T-splines in there?
That'll be a later class. That's a little too much for beginners. Do you guys like my background, by the way?
Oh yeah, I was like, does he work in a record store? Like, what's going on back there?
It's vintage video games behind
I
there.
was like, what is all that? All right, are we done for tonight?
I think so.
Okay. Good
All right, I'll tell
night.
some people about this.
Please do. Yeah, we're gonna keep going, and I promise.
I can tell.
I promise that I'm gonna escalate the knowledge as we go along.
I'll try that Zoom Select tomorrow.
Zoom Select, man, that's a game changer. Yeah, so feel free to send me any questions that you have, and you know, I'm available for, you know, if you want to zoom in and show me your screen, I'll walk you through it. You know, I'll help you out.
Okay.
All right.
Bye.
Bye, guys.
All right, good night.